Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the work session of the Board of Commissioners, Haverford Township, on this Monday, October 2nd, 2017. The Board of Commissioners met in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss a personnel issue and also to discuss a real estate issue. Would you please take the roll?
Certainly. Mr. D'Amelio?
Here.
Mr. McCluskey?
Here.
Mr. Siegel?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Holmes?
Here.
Mr. McGarity?
Here.
Mr. Wexler?
Here.
Mr. Oliva?
Here.
And Mr. Connell.
Here. If everyone, prior to the Pledge of Allegiance, if everybody would please rise anyway, and we'll take a moment of silence into the unfortunate tragedies of in Nevada. Lord, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, and the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We ask this in your name. Amen. Chief.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. And tonight we have the, let's see, the PICO present,
They will not be here.
and they won't be here, okay. And Mr. Brennan from the construction manager update.
Yeah. They wouldn't have it ready, so he wanted them to be put on. Yeah, it's next week.
Good evening. There are no change orders for approval at this meeting. The contingency exposure has actually decreased since last month. It's down to 57% exposure overall. As far as the progress of the project, the first floor has been substantially completed and furniture is being moved in starting today, another delivery on Thursday with final move-in 16th. The big item that we're trying to, we need addressed is PICO hooking up the gas. So as long as they can come in and hook up the gas, then we can get our generator running and test it. It's scheduled for October 12th, so hopefully PICO will tie in the gas main prior to that. Right now, contractors are still in there. They're working on punch lists. The architect was through there again. He's issued a preliminary punch list already, and he's issuing another one. And they also left the flooring out in the corridor section to allow the move-in, so nothing got damaged. As far as the second floor, that is also progressing well. All the back offices have all been painted, ceiling grids installed. We had a meeting today, and the planned turnover date, substantial completion to start moving in furniture in that space is right around Thanksgiving.
Does anybody on the board have any questions? No. No? Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Appreciate it. Okay, EAC, their presentation, I understand, Mr. Holmes, they will be presenting that next week.
Yes, they hope to. They were not finished, and I know they're meeting as a group tomorrow to go over it, so they've asked to move to next Tuesday.
Okay, with the information that they have, they needed some changes and what have you. And
Yes.
okay, thank you very
And I
much.
will ask them to share the information with us before the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Reason that PICO representative won't be here this evening is because PICO has a new government representative, and they asked if they could appear at the December meeting. So that's why they won't be here this evening. Police Department crime update, Chief?
Thank you, Commissioner. Crime report for September of 2017, 273 parking tickets were issued, 402 traffic citations, 218 written warnings. We had 4 sex offenses in the month. Central Avenue, a juvenile victim, suspect known to the victim. Ongoing investigation. The incident took place last April. The juvenile victim, the suspect father, ongoing investigation. Haverford Reserve Trail, a white male in his 20s walking without his clothes on. We had 2 incidents of this person. We had, in the Haverford Reserve at the playground area, we had indecent exposure. A person was arrested. Attempted burglary, 100 block of Heatherwood, screens pushed up to the first floor. 700 block of Millbrook, suspect at front door jiggled the doorknob. Vehicle thefts. We had 38 vehicle thefts in the month of September. It went up. We have 2 arrests. Every one of them were unlocked cars. Once again, I'll say it. We have to start locking cars. It's going to continue. We had 2 cars stolen. One was recovered in Philly. One was recovered in Lansdowne. Canine usage, vehicle investigation with a drug arrest, a search on open unoccupied residence, article search, and AOJ for Clifton Heights for an armed robbery. That's the report for September.
Any questions? Thank you, Chief.
Commissioner.
Next on the agenda is the Commissioner Committee updates. Any commissioners have any updates on their committees?
Mr. President.
Mr. Holmes.
I would like to report Amy Cuthbertson, our excellent finance director, reported to all of us last week that during a telephone call with Moody's as part of the annual checkup for municipal debt issuers that Larry Gentili and Ms. Cuthbertson participated on, Moody's gave them word that our township has been upgraded from its AA2 rating, which was an excellent rating, to AA1, and that is only one step away from a coveted AAA rating. And of the 2,561 municipalities in Pennsylvania, including 67 counties, only 10% of the municipalities have an A1, I'm sorry, a AA1 or a AAA rating. So my congratulations to our excellent staff and to my colleagues on this board. I don't think without the discipline that we have that we've undertaken in the last 12 years, I don't think our township would be in the shape it is now compared to the shape it had once been in. So thank you all. And Larry, Amy, thank you both.
Yep, and a lot of these practices are just as short as 7 years ago. I think they brought them in. Great job.
Could I just ask a question about the, maybe Amy can answer this, or Larry? So what does it, this obviously means in terms of the taxpayer, this means that we can borrow, when and if we borrow for park improvements or the library, that we can borrow at better rates.
That's right.
the bottom
It's
line.
very
So what does
similar
that
to-
mean? What's it translate in terms of percentage-wise?
That would be hard to gauge, but it's very similar to an individual with a higher credit rating who gets better interest rates on mortgages and car loans. We'll get better interest rates now on our borrowing as well, saving the township money.
Yeah.
You know,
And-
again,
Hard to quantify.
Right.
Yeah.
difficult to gauge the difference, but it is pretty substantial.
Good.
And
That's
it
great.
has other effects that you don't necessarily think about. It can make refinancing some of the debt that we already have that's at decent rates now a profitable exercise, since
Right.
we've now gotten that extra push. So, we may find that, when we get to a part where some of our bonds were callable, but we planned on hanging on to them, we may now find that it is better for us in the long term to refinance some of that debt.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very positive thing. And all this is without, so people understand, this is without bond insurance. We do not pay the extra cost associated with the premiums associated with bond insurance. That is the thing of the past for us.
Yeah. It's great news.
Kudos to you. Anybody else? Did you have anything for
Yeah,
commissioners?
just briefly, I wanted to touch base. The senior committee last month held their first of they're planning more, but the first senior workshop at the CREC in the middle of September, and it was a very successful event. They had a couple of presentations, and I would encourage everybody to keep a lookout, any senior citizens in the audience, for further events in the future. I understand it was very informative, very well received, and very well attended. Just wanted to note that.
Thank you, Commissioner. And there being nothing else, then we will move on next on the agenda. For next week, there are 4 ordinances. The first of is P14 2017, which is a property tax credit, it's reimbursement for the volunteer fire personnel, and that is the first reading. Commissioner of the Fire Service, Mr. Wexler, do you have, you were going to meet with the township manager with the Bureau of Fire?
We did. We met with the Bureau of Fire. We reviewed it. Mr. Gentili presented the changes that were made. I think everything was in agreement. They're looking forward to it, and I believe that the chief officer that runs the Bureau of Fire this year will be in attendance to appropriately thank us if we pass it at the formal meeting in November, when it actually reaches its second reading and then becomes an ordinance. But everything was hammered out. Amy did a great job. Amy and Larry did a good job of doing that, and the criteria, I believe, is set. There's a point system being put in effect by all 5 fire companies. They will track it, submit it, and it will be issued as a credit. And we changed the wording so that this is a one-time ordinance instead of having to do it every year, which was a concern of Mr. Gentili and Amy. So I think we're in good shape. I think we're ready for the first reading, and then hopefully the second reading in November. So.
And there was also, I believe, a discussion that had to do with the process for appeal. That's
part of it.
Sure.
Anytime you have anything with taxes, you have to have an appeal procedure with it. So that's been included. Amy took care of that.
Great. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Does everybody have this?
Yeah. The only question I had, and it looks great, on the form, is this a form we got from the state? Because it has self-certification rather than getting like the signature notarized, because we're essentially asking them to confirm information about themselves or their property.
Well, the one form goes to the chief of each department. Mm-hmm. They then investigate, make sure it's correct, and that document that's submitted to Amy is notarized with the 5 to 10 or 15 names, whatever's there. So it is notarized before it comes to the township.
So is it then notarized by the chief who checked it out, or is it notarized by the individual?
It's notarized by the fire companies, the chief officers. And they can either have it by, I'm assuming by whoever their signatory. Usually it's their chief officer and probably signed by their secretaries or their board of trustees. So it is, and it's a notarized document that comes to Amy. So they have to meet the point system and verified, then it'll be re-verified at the township that they are in fact on the deed and a homeowner.
Okay.
Mr. President. Commissioner Wexler, has any attempt been made, even a guess, as to what, the actual amounts at issue are here?
Yes, Amy or Larry can address the total.
Yes, we were able to work with all 5 fire companies, and they gave us a list of who they thought were potential candidates for this. If everybody who was potential candidate did do all the service, it would be approximately 115 people, and it would equate to about $26,000, $28,000. That's if everybody who was eligible did the service credits.
And this is for the township tax. It doesn't affect, obviously, we can't affect the county, and we can't affect the school district.
No.
And it doesn't affect fees.
Trash fee or sewer.
No. And one of the points we had to clarify was that the bill will be calculated and presented as if there is no credit. The taxpayer will pay it, and then we will issue a reimbursement check to them within 60 days after payment.
Thank you very much, Mrs.
Is there
Cuthbertson.
any option to just
Recall?
Is there any option to allow people just to opt? Like if you pay your tax, overpay your taxes, you can get a refund, or you can just apply them to next year. We're not going to undertake
There
that, right?
isn't in 172, didn't address that, and it might be a little bit cumbersome as far as record keeping, us keeping track of credits to be applied to future years.
I think I asked this before, but that is the maximum we can do? We can't
20%.
do more?
20% is the maximum, yes.
Because that, real dollar terms, doesn't seem like a lot of money, but
No, it was an average, maybe $200
Yeah,
to
still.
each person, so that's
Okay.
good for
And I
them.
think
Okay.
to address Commissioner Holmes, I think trying to do a credit for the next year, there might be reasons why the member didn't get enough points the next year or the successive year because of either business or something. So it's a cleaner way to do it annually as opposed to carry
Yeah, no,
forward
it makes
like
sense.
that.
And record keeping, that makes sense. I just didn't know if we wanted to do that.
Mr. Gentili?
No, I just wanted to mention that, and Commissioner Wexler was there, the rank and file of the Bureau of Fire, or the chiefs and the ranking officers are very appreciative of the board taking this initiative, and I believe we're the first township in Delaware County.
I believe we're the first in Delaware County. And they're also being thanked tonight. If you guys remember the big fire the day of the Broad Street Run, Mr. Daly, the owner of Barnaby's, is having the members of all the fire companies were invited to a happy hour with hors d'oeuvres from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock this evening at Barnaby's, and that's his way of thanking the fire department. So we do have a local business that recognized the effort to help save the bulk of his building and is repaying and entertaining any firemen that wanted to go to the happy hour. John and I can't go this evening for some reason, but
Well, I could-
everybody
I'll
else
move
is
to
probably
adjourn.
there.
Finished. We can finish by quarter of.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Chris, can I just get a plug in there because Mr. Barnaby got a plug? I'd like to congratulate Father Cox at Annunciation, who had a mass yesterday for the police, the fire, and the paramedics, and also had everybody downstairs for the luncheon. So that was in honor of our police.
Responders.
Yes, first responders.
Blue mass, right?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. There being nothing further then on the questions, next on the ordinance is a second reading, P 15 2017 RHM 50-year extension agreement. Nothing has been changed on that since the last reading.
No.
Next
We
on is
changed
the
the-
P6,
Change the addresses, right, on that?
as far as
They did.
14
And our
Darby
listing,
Road.
Order of wards.
And is there,
Language.
you know what, Mr. President, just give me 10 seconds, will you?
Want to go get it?
Want us to come back?
Yeah, why don't we do the gathering in parks, and then we can come around.
Let me just ask the solicitor something. We were, the township of Radnor, the listing of the officers in the township of Radnor, unless something's happened that I don't know about, this listing is just incorrect between president and vice president. We want to fix that ordinance before we pass it. I believe Mr. R. is the president of the Board of Commissioners of Township of Radnor, and Ms. Schaefer is the vice president.
I'm not sure about
Resigned?
that right now.
Didn't he resign?
Yeah, I think he
But
resigned.
did he? Because I'm just looking at the most recent story, which didn't have him resigning. Has he resigned?
I don't know that he has or hasn't, but it sounds like he's,
Yeah, well,
Well, we're passing this
Let me
ordinance
not
as of
speculate,
what,
but-
as of what the state of affairs is next Tuesday. So
Yeah.
Let's
I
get
would
this
suggest that
changes
we
by then.
remain aware of that, but unless my information's bad, this currently isn't factually correct.
And that's right there. Manager. Thank you very much. Anything further? Next on the agenda is ordinance P 16/2017, the gathering in parks. This is a second reading.
yeah, this is, again, we've gone over this, talked about this.
Did you want to say anything? Or
No, I mean,
No, okay.
we're,
I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
this is the, well, we talked about this at length last time,
Okay.
just raising the amount, the threshold for, or I'm sorry,
Reducing.
reducing the threshold for what a gathering is.
Anything additional? There being none, and then we have P 17/2017 for health backyard hens. This is a second reading. Discussion?
please, let's have discussion.
Yes.
I don't think we've talked about this enough.
All right, you know I'm going to discuss it. I mean,
Well, I mean,
Mr.
look,
Oliva, you want to take
we-
first?
well, I was looking over this ordinance, which was from Haddon Township, which Lori sent to me today, actually, because Lois, in her story, put it in her story, and so I was wondering, about this program that is in Haddon, New Jersey, which permits each owner of the property. And it's a pilot program that they were using. It started in October of 2015. And so they keep it for a year. They renew it every year. And your permit is issued by the, they check the cleanliness. Each person has to take a class in how to take care of the chicken and proper cleaning. And so maybe something we want to look into so that we know that the residents who have these chickens are actually know what they're doing, how they're handling the chickens. They're aware of how, we're not just buying chickens, putting them in a coop, and people don't know how to take care of them. So, if we wanted to put that out there for discussion.
There's nothing to rebut.
Okay.
I mean, actually, at the last
After Larry.
meeting, I indicated that I was I appreciated Mr. Lewis's efforts at compromise and the changes we made to that ordinance. I did vote yes last meeting. I will not be voting yes this time on this ordinance on the second reading. I do not believe 25 feet or 20 feet is enough. We live, my ward, a number of wards in our township are densely packed with people. And I think we're creating a problem here. I don't think we should legislate township-wide for the requests of a couple people. We've made very clear that chicken police aren't going out to bust up any coops and get rid of any chickens that exist in the township right now. But the latest reading of the ordinance would allow chickens in circumstances where 4 or 5 neighbors would be literally within sight of these things in the 6th ward, where we're packed into 1/10 acre properties. And so I can't support. I agreed with the ordinance we passed several years ago with the 100-foot setbacks and with the acre of property. I don't believe in loosening those restrictions.
Mr. Lewis, did you have something?
No, I just-
Mr. Siegel?
Weren't we talking about a 25-foot setback? So
20
wouldn't
foot.
20 foot.
Well,
So wouldn't
move
that
to
preclude
20.
them, in your densely populated ward, wouldn't that preclude anybody from basically having any chickens?
Well,
based
if
on
I
that
have
20-foot?
a 50-foot wide lot, I could have a 5-foot wide chicken and be a chicken coop and be good on 20 feet from one side and 20 feet from the other and 20
10
feet
feet.
from the back line.
It would give
And
you 10
I
feet.
what's that?
It would give you a 10-foot coop. 20 feet from either side, you got a 50-foot lot.
Right,
It would
then
give
I'd
you
have a
10-foot
10-foot coop,
Yeah.
and it would still just be 50
Be in the middle of
feet.
your
And I
yard,
think, did
which-
we do the math? I mean, was 50 feet from that corner to that corner? It's not far. I can't, I've gotten, to the extent that people in the 6th Ward have opined to me about chickens in the 6th Ward, they have opined against it, and I just don't believe that the case has been made for us to make a change township-wide under these circumstances. There could be plenty of other ways that we could try to do this. I like the idea you just suggested, Mr. Oliva, about, whether we create permits. I think there needs to be more education on this.
Yeah, I agree. And how
but-
they handle chickens
Yeah.
and things like that. Just educating people.
But, when they don't work, getting rid of them is going to be way harder than trying to make sure everything gets done right first.
That's correct, but what I'm talking about is permitting it every year. So if it's not working, if your neighbors are complaining, if things are going on with this particular coop, which is permitted in the yard, then you could, the township would rescind that.
Yeah, but if it's just the neighbors hate it, is that one of our boxes we check? Do the neighbors hate these chickens? Yes, therefore we have to get rid of the permit. I mean, you need standards, and you created standards. I mean, one of the things the problems we had last month was the notion of, can the neighbors okay it, and does it pass along through the next property owners and things like that, and we wanted to get rid of that discretion because it wasn't clear enough. What you've done is clear. I just don't agree with it.
Because it could apply the same for any other animal, like a dog. If somebody has 2, 3 dogs that are in their backyard and have a dog house, and is everybody picking up, the dog from the dog? If they have a rabbit and they have a hut in their backyard, and what have you. So, I mean, it's not all that different than if you have a dog, if you have a rabbit, you have a chicken.
I
It is
disagree.
so different.
Mr. President.
But you haven't lived next door to a person with a chicken.
I have not. And I don't intend to.
If I may, there's a distinct difference between dogs, cats, and chickens. The Center for Disease Control has repeatedly issued warnings about the outbreak of salmonella as a result of the use or the housing or raising of backyard chickens. Their August 21st advisory reported that since July 13, 2017, so a little over a month, there were 172 more people reported salmonella illnesses just in that period. They're investigating multiple outbreaks. They've issued multiple reports. This is what I was talking about last month when we sort of passed a first reading by committee. I don't believe we have taken into account the proper issues in terms of health and public safety, which is exactly what Commissioner Oliva is talking about. The ordinance from Haddon Township, which we were provided, addresses a lot of those issues, requiring certain standards. Our ordinance is aspirational. It says this is what you should do. You have to keep it clean. We don't have an enforcement mechanism. We tried to obtain, but it hasn't been published yet. Our neighboring township, Radnor, their health board was looking at the issue of chickens and is planning a proposed ordinance, and the only thing we have is a summary in the newspaper that requires notification to the township, specific information about the location, that there be a fenced area with free range. The township has to be able to inspect the installation without warning at any time and could require modifications, and a variety of other items. Unfortunately, they don't have their final ordinance. But this ordinance that their health board is proposing at least provides mechanisms that assure that the township can go in and address health and safety issues. Salmonella is a very serious condition, and CDC has consistently reported a correlation between backyard chickens and the increase in salmonella. And I don't think our ordinance sufficiently provides safeguards against this, and that if we're going to do this, I mean, I can understand the reasoning for it, but I don't believe our ordinance sufficiently protects our residents.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to make fun of Dan because he's the ordinance committee.
Well, I asked last month.
I'm just kidding. I know.
And they said,
I'm
don't
just
give
kidding
it to
with
the
you, Dan.
ordinance committee.
No, but I do agree. I do think that there needs to be controls in place, and that people need to be educated. People who are going to do this need to be educated on how to keep the pens clean, how to keep things healthy, because then you don't want those type of issues to arise.
Well, so there's also, I mean, how many dog bites have there been also? I mean, we could go, I know there's been a lot of salmonella, whatever the case may be, but there's also
Hey,
other
Chris,
things
when I
that
see
happen.
video of families with chickens in their beds at night and chickens greeting them at the door and chickens rubbing up against them and purring and doing all those things, then I'll tolerate a conversation comparing chickens to dogs and cats. These are not domestic pets. These are farm animals.
Again, I agree with you, and I do think that there is value in having them, having fresh eggs and things like that.
It's
But
great value.
But I do think that there needs to be more regulation, and it needs to be permitted.
I just think we're a densely populated inner ring suburb, and I think we're creating a problem we don't need to create. I think we're creating a problem that we're going to regret creating. Dan's points about our lack of health controls right now are good points, and again, if we can, if we can come up with a more heavily regulated and increase the area, the buffers around these things, I'd consider it. But right now, at 20 feet from properties, there's very few neighborhoods in the town that these won't work. That these won't be able to be put in, and I think that's a mistake.
At 20 feet. Yeah, because I know that prior to that, it was 25, which means it wouldn't work in almost the
Right now,
overwhelming majority.
it's 100 feet. You have to have an acre, and it's 100 feet setback. That's what the current regulation is.
Right,
Right, and this is reducing it to 20.
Yeah.
Now, if it goes before a reading and it's defeated, then it doesn't come back for conversation. But if it goes to the ordinance committee to add that in there,
Yes.
then it still has the potential to have a reading. But it would have to be a first and second reading?
Well, yeah, it'd be
That would be a
I don't mean to
substantial
speak for the
change.
solicitor, but I mean, that would be
Yeah.
a change of some significance to
Yeah.
make it a new first reading. I mean, I as far as the procedure goes, we could amend an ordinance anytime, depending on the degree to which we amend it. It simply becomes a new ordinance and subject to a new first reading. Correct me if I got that wrong.
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
It would be a substantive change.
Yes,
obviously.
and Mr. McCusker is, for those in the audience, Mr. McCusker is filling in tonight for our township solicitor, so with the same firm, but filling in tonight. Thank you very much for that.
We could provide, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Haddon already has this in place. We could, have the ordinance committee look at this and.
But in doing that, that changes.
Correct, we would
it
just have a first
substantially,
reading.
And it has to have another first reading.
Right, we'll have a first reading and then pass it again. I think there is value in having chickens, but I think that we need to regulate it a little more because of health concerns.
My only concern about going to the permitting process, if we're going to issue permits and make people take classes, then we have to have staff that's at a higher degree of certification to be able to go out and inspect. Puts a burden back on our staff to go now inspect chicken coops and make sure that.
Well, we're
It's
not
great.
looking at hundreds of coops. I mean, the amount of people who have coops in Haverford
Still have
Township is a
class
small
time and
amount.
training and all that stuff, because we can't send an inspector out that knows less than the guy that took the class.
We already have chicken coops in the township. I mean, and we're saying that we're not going to force them out.
We do. We don't necessarily. We're not thinking about protecting people from themselves and from their own chickens. And if they're hundreds of feet away from neighbors, and if they are on 1 acre properties, then for the most part, the concerns that those chickens raise are going to be concerns limited to that family raising those chickens. You start putting those chickens on the 2500 block at Chestnut Avenue, and you're not talking about the family raising the chickens. You're talking about the 10 houses that could throw a medicine ball into that backyard from their own backyard. So it's just not. It's a whole different story when you start talking about how much you have to ramp up the review and the supervision from a health perspective. The more yards, the more homes we allow these in, and the greater effect they have on the neighboring properties. If they were limited to 10-acre yards and had to be 1,000 feet from anybody, we wouldn't even know about them. But as soon as you start putting them into densely packed neighborhoods, Bill has an excellent point. We're going to have to train an army of farm animal inspectors to make sure these things are going right.
An army? Wow. How many coops are we doing, man?
Well, but judging by the effort to get these done, it seems like everybody wants to have their own eggs and wants to do these.
But they're not. I mean, they're not going to go on Chestnut Avenue, right? I mean, even at 20 feet, I mean, they wouldn't fit in your lot.
Well, they might if you have a double, and every 10th house in the 6th ward is part of a two-lot
I would like
property
to see
they
that
haven't
medicine ball
developed yet.
thrown.
What?
I'd like to see that medicine ball thrown at over 10 lots.
They're
Who's doing that, like Superman?
You'll see. Mario, your ward isn't very different from mine.
No, it is
I can't
not.
imagine that people feel differently than
again,
mine.
I think that we can regulate this and permit it and not have substantial, I mean, we need to educate our staff, obviously. I don't think that is an issue.
Can I make a suggestion that we refer this to the ordinance committee?
Well, I'd rather go to the ordinance committee than have it defeated.
Yeah,
and
that's what it sounds like it's going to be.
go away.
Yeah.
It's because there are enough people out there that do have the interest in it. And in the interest of health and the concerns of you gentlemen, I'm up for making sure that the ordinance has the proper reading to keep those who want them and those who might see them next door. So,
Mr. President, just
Yes.
As a point of clarification while we're talking about this, it appears under number B, or under section B, it still has 25 feet instead of 20. So if we're moving forward, I just think we should correct that if 20 is what we wanted.
We're going to have a whole new ordinance if it's the ordinance committee will take a
Right.
look at everything, right?
And I would hope that the ordinance committee, I mean, Commissioner Lewis, you discussed this last time. We've been talking about this for quite a while, so I would ask the ordinance committee to address this as soon as possible.
could they come back next, is it feasible to say to come back in the November meeting or the December meeting?
I would think November, December. I don't think we can do it next week, but
Oh, no, I
okay.
understand that.
The November meeting,
I would think the November meeting is feasible.
and you have the head and the.
I have that, yes,
okay,
thanks.
you have that.
Yeah. It's helpful, and I mean, we have to debate. I don't know that, everything that every other municipality has is what we need, but there's a lot of good examples out there, and in drafting, a lot of times you see what other communities have done and you build on it.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what's before us at P17 2017 will still hold its number, but it'll go to the ordinance committee because it is a proposal.
Yeah, but I would ask that it not be placed on the agenda for next week, because
I
otherwise we'll
understand
just
that.
have to table it, obviously.
Yeah.
Chris, who's on the ordinance committee?
Mr. Siegel, who was on your committee with you?
I believe it's me, Mr. Lewis. I'm just trying to remember.
Anybody want to take my spot?
Sorry, I'm too busy for the next month. I won't be drafting a chicken ordinance. I'm not on this committee, am I?
You are.
1 second.
Damn.
It is me, Mr. Lewis, Mr. McCluskey, and Mr. Wexler.
Okay, there you go.
Dodge the bullet. Dodge the farmer's
I look forward to discussing this.
Be an expert.
So for those who are out there, I want you to understand that
last
please
month.
don't get discouraged. But, I mean, this is part of the bureaucracy that happens when something comes up. And then you do have a board that is willing to go back and forth and see what we can do to perfect an ordinance. Okay, so please don't get discouraged, and we'll move forward on this. So this will not be on the agenda next week, but we will have an ordinance to address this, a proposal to address this in the November meeting. Okay? Am I correct, gentlemen? That's the direction we're going?
Yes.
Yes.
Make sure that we're all on the same page. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And moving forward, we have here, let's see, an agreement for a 3-year extension with the Delaware County Public School Health Care Trust. And Mr. Gentili, anything on that?
Sir, we would ask the board's support. Obviously, we had a very positive relationship with that, and we're looking forward to extending this contract and continuing it in the consortium of working with the other towns to keep our rates down.
So can you just explain it a little bit, what this is?
Or Aim, can
For the
you get up
public?
to give us the specifics? Sure.
Can give a brief
Yeah.
description?
Synopsis of-
3 years ago, we joined this trust to consolidate the buying power of many municipalities in Delaware County with school districts in Delaware County to naturally get lower renewal rates on our Blue Cross and Blue Shield medical insurance. When we first started this, when we first entered this 3 years ago, we were looking at a double-digit increase, and if you remember, and I think it was provided to you, the history of increases over the 3-year term we've been in, they've been very manageable. This most recent one is a 0% increase, which we're thrilled about. But that initial agreement was only for 3 years, and it's over now, so every municipality has been asked to recommit for an additional 3 years, so we continue to buy and procure our medical insurance with the buying power of all of us combined.
Okay. Ms. Cuthbertson, this was, in this situation, we increased the number of people we joined with, because we had previously been in a consortium just of townships, hadn't we?
Right, and this one is townships and school districts within Delaware County. We each have 2 different renewals, naturally, but the buying power is all one.
And does it in any way limit our choices with regard to where we can go for our prescription drugs, where we can go for our plans?
No, how we design our plan is totally at our discretion, with labor commitments and things that we have. But no, there's no hindrances in that regard.
And you recommend that you do recommend
I
that
do.
we
As I mentioned
re-up.
earlier, we were facing double-digit increases doing this the old way, and we've had single-digit and a 0 this year. Even last year, it was pretty manageable. So the 3 years we've been in this have been very lucrative for the township, so hopefully we'll have another 3 years of very manageable increases.
On a different note, have we ever been approached about entering into 24-month as opposed to 12-month health plans? Has that ever been?
My knowledge.
I don't think it's offered.
I don't think you can do 24 months.
Well, I know there's some municipalities that have done things like bought plans going forward, 2
That far
years,
forward,
3 years.
That would be, I would think, very unusual,
The
especially
other-
in this environment, this
I know
kind
you'd
of an
know.
uncertain environment.
There's another buying consortium that we're familiar with in a different county, and they're on an annual basis too. That large buying power, they're also annual.
Something's ringing a bell. I just remember there have been some, in the last couple of years, there have been municipalities that have financed healthcare plans, and they've somehow managed to lock in multi-year rates, but it's a risk. I mean, they guess on a biannual rate of increase, and obviously, unless you guess 0, you'd have guessed wrong for us. So
Yeah.
keep up the good work.
Good guessing.
Thank you, Amy.
All right.
Thank you, Mrs. Cuthbertson. Last on the agenda is the appointment unexpired 3-year term as library board trustee for December 31st, 2019. Mr. Wexler.
Yeah,
you were in that
as the
committee.
board probably knows by now, Ms. Gaspara passed away last month. She was a member, she was a appointee by the board to the Board of Trustees of the library. What I did do is I had Ms. Scugini forward the packet to Mr. Goldsmith, who's the president of the Board of Trustees, to have him look through the people that were interested in serving this year to see if there was a candidate to fill the unexpired term at that point. He reached out to all the resumes that had applied and we had interviewed, and he narrowed it down. There were several people that were not interested. I see Ms. Hall's here. She was no longer interested in serving. There was another gentleman, did not get back to him, another person that didn't have the time to do it, but there were 2 people that were still very interested. So the discussion here, or the decision that we have, is do we want to use the pool that we had, since we had a great pool this year for many of the committees and boards, and do that, or do we want to re-advertise and open it back up? In talking, so I gave, to get a head start and a jump on it because of the construction project coming up and an absence on the board, to at least get Mr. Goldsmith and the board to look at the resumes of those people that are doing that. And he did talk to them and gauge their interest, and he has one person still very enthusiastic about serving and is looking for the opportunity to do it and has the time since he recently retired. But again, it's our decision whether we want to open it back up again or use the pool that we've already interviewed to do that, since it's happened in the same year. My personal feeling is I'd like to get somebody that was excited, had applied, we've already interviewed, and then we could appoint out of this year's pool. But if you guys want to open it up again, it will delay the process by a couple of months. So that's the only reason. So,
I would rather not. I'd rather,
okay. I mean,
Just go-
it's up.
go that
It's not my
direction.
decision.
Yeah.
I did want them to look at it and get a feel for the candidates. But again, it's a total board decision if you want to advertise it. There's really when you look at the procedures, I kind of felt we had a good pool. We had 5 or 6 people that applied, and we did a reappointment. So there was a substantial sized pool, and we did advertise. But again, I'm not tied to it. I just would rather get it done quickly so that there's some continuity. But again, it's a board decision, not mine.
Is there another spot coming due at the end of 12/31/17?
Yeah, there's probably at least one that would expire this coming up year, I would think. Not 100% sure, but I can check.
Well, we have 5 appointees, or do we have 4? 4.
There's-
Three-year
it's a seven-member
terms, so we
board.
either have 1 or 2 this year coming up. So if we were to proceed with the current pool, we do know in less than 3 months, we have an opportunity again to put out, a request for resumes and consider people for another spot opening in, at the start of 2018. So, I mean, if this were March, it would be one thing, but since we're so close to another appointment anyway, I don't have a problem with considering the people we currently have and going
I would
from
agree.
there.
And with the project coming up, I think it's important to get somebody in there as soon as possible, rather than going out for, spend another couple months.
We do not have a library board appointment. I'm looking at the notice for January, I don't believe.
There is one for the expiration for 2017?
Not according to the notice that was sent or that was issued. We should check that then and verify.
Isn't that online?
But as the person who created the proposal for the process of when we had a vacancy, I think this is the circumstance where we all agree that we need to make an appointment now. This is an important board in the middle of an important project, the renovation, and I would want to have that board fully staffed or fully appointed.
Yeah, and we had some
quickly.
We
had some great applicants.
Yeah, we
I
had great
agree.
applicants.
There's 2 of them, there's 2 that are very good at applicants, and I think we should go, my recommendation also is to go with those that we have presently in the pool.
I concur as well.
If that's a concurrence, I'll work with Mr. Goldsmith, and we'll get his recommendation as to which one, and then I'll make a nomination at next week's meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wexler. Anybody else?
Yeah, Chris, I think there's Chief, is Chief still here? No. I think there was supposed to be...
He's going to Barnaby's.
He's got 5 minutes.
He's got the lights on.
Larry, I think we were supposed to have a ordinance for a no parking restriction on Highland Lane. It was supposed to be on the agenda, and for some reason it's not here. At Coopertown School.
Coopertown School?
Yeah. Check. Gloria has it, or check with the chief.
So that would be a first reading.
That would be a first reading. Thank you.
All right.
And Gloria would
Wait,
have that.
actually, is the one that's coming up Phil Goldsmith's? I'm trying to figure this.
No.
It makes no sense to me that we have nobody cycling off. Because we have 4
They might be
appointees and we only have
they might
3-year
be
terms.
every other year. Two are appointed. I don't know. Jane, do you? Might be two every other year. They're not staggered.
Well, they should be
Staggered.
staggered. We've
They
never
should be
put on
staggered.
more than 2
Yeah,
in a year.
If we
we
put
only
on two,
put
that
on
means
one.
that. Yeah. 2, so it might be 2 every other year. Yeah.
It wasn't 2 in the end of it wasn't 2 this year in January of 17.
Well,
And actually, I think I know which one's coming up. I mean, I know who was appointed in January of 15.
Well, now, actually, if you look, there was a vacancy. I'm looking at the township directory, and there's nothing listed. There's only 6 members listed there, and 3 are it's from the township. And then you go back to the library board's page, and they're showing 3 township representatives: Phil Goldsmith, Madeline Ofria, Monica Bicella. with one vacancy and the 3 appointees that come from the library. So there's an opening. It's just figuring out the date and what happened.
Well, Andy, you joined the board in January of 16.
I can't remember what I did last week, so don't ask me what happened back in 16.
Well, I'm trying, I thought I remember Monica Pacella being appointed in January of 15.
I think that is correct.
And that would be coming due.
Yeah, that is correct.
With 3-year terms, right?
According to the township directory, Bacella's appointment ends December of 2018.
Would it be coming due? This is 2017.
There is nothing
nothing
for
coming to-
17.
And
Nothing.
adding in Phil Goldsmith, who I don't believe we have an opening this year.
One,
Spot did
two,
Phil take?
3, 4.
Phil took Rob Cohen's.
Yep, Rod Cohen
Not
went to
listed
the
on-
stadium.
And when was Rob appointed?
No, wait, no, Rob was, no. Take
His,
Rob's place?
Rob was appointed by this board.
He had resigned, and then we appointed Phil Goldsmith.
I know, but when was his term ending? I think his term was ending 12/31/17. I think Phil Goldsmith's term ends in 3 months.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's one.
But I think we're all in agreement.
I think we're all in agreement that he'll be.
I think we're all in agreement that we should try to make an appointment next week based
Quickly.
on Mr. Wexler's, and we can figure out the timeline of the
Yeah, it
rest of
doesn't
this stuff
change my
later.
look. Somebody comes along who's even
4
more
and
extraordinary than
18.
Mr. Goldsmith. We'll consider him in January, but there's not a reason not to act now.
Right. The rationale is that the library is going through large projects right now, and we don't want to leave a vacancy there any longer than is necessary. So we should try to appoint somebody next week.
Mr. Wexler, you're going to make that recommendation next week, correct?
I am.
Thank you very much. Anything further for the board?
Nope.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Remember, next week, everybody, it's on Tuesday.